Hello there and welcome to the Fastmarkets Live Lounge, brought to you thanks to Aquatech. And we are recording this live on location at the Lithium Supply and Battery Raw Materials Conference here in Las Vegas. Now, I'm Georgia Tolley, and joining me on our sofas today is Dale Henderson. He is Managing Director and CEO of PLS. Now, they are one of Australia's leading lithium producers and a key player as well on the global stage. Dale joined the company in 2017. That was when he was Chief Operating Officer, and he played a key role in transforming PLS from a project developer into an ASX 50 listed producer. Since stepping into the CEO role in 2022, he's led the company through expansion, market fertility, and some very bold strategic moves, including downstream partnerships and technology investments. We're going to explore his journey, his leadership insights, and what the road looks like ahead for lithium. Dale, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So I hear congratulations are in order. You have won Leader of the Year in our awards ceremony. Tell me what recognition like that means for you.
Yeah, I was very surprised and humbled to receive that award, and obviously there's some amazing nominations there. So as I say, very, very humbled, and a delight. And in terms of my acceptance speech, I made the point that leadership's a team game, and my team's amazing, and everything PLS has managed to achieve has been through them, and will be through them. So really, I'm just very grateful for the role I can play contributing to that team, and look, wonderful to have an accolade like this, and it's credit to them, not so much me.
How did you first get into the resources sector?
Well, out of uni, I joined a broad engineering company, and through that I went out into a coal project, of all things. Was my first foray into resources, and since then, always stayed in resource companies, but of different kinds, so including some iron ore in Australia, some oil and gas in the Middle East, some LNG back in Australia, magnetite, and of course, my latest chapter has been lithium.
Is there a sort of a constant thread there? Are many of this, is much of the skill set the same?
There is definitely a common thread in terms of being involved in extracting a resource and concentrating or processing it and then transporting it. That would be the common element. Everything else obviously is different. Okay,
so at what point did you decide that you really wanted to lead one of these companies? You wanted to move into the sort of management role, and how easy was it for you to make that transition?
I think during the course of my career, the thing which was probably the constant is I was always drawn into the biggest challenge, wherever that was, wherever I was working, and that's what I really enjoyed. Whatever the crisis of the moment was, or a big thing to be solved, I really yearned to be in that. And through that, I naturally sort of moved up the ranks. So it was never a case of I wanted to be a particular leader or something. It was just more being drawn about, gee, that project looks really exciting, and sort of one thing led to another. So as it relates to being a CEO, I didn't really necessarily have that as a key objective in mind. However, of course, when, as I graduated to COO, that type of idea sort of started to enter my head, and here we are.
Yeah. So you didn't have a sort of driving desire to be in charge and be the boss and dominate?
No, not at all.
Okay, so, but I mean, equally, you are now the boss, and obviously being CEO comes with rewards, but also demands, I mean, a huge amount of responsibility, particularly in such a volatile sector. I'd like you to cast your mind back, if possible. Can you think of the sort of highs and lows for me, any particular moments?
Yeah, well, as I think about being involved in resources companies generally, I've been through multiple cycles with multiple commodities, and the highs are always wonderful and the lows are always terrible. So I've seen quite a few lows over my years, and in oil and other places. But of course, more recently in lithium, we've had at least two sort of cycles of quite grim lows, and we're in the second. And as it relates to the last one, that was particularly challenging in 2019, 2020. And for PLS, well, it almost broke the company. And it was an incredibly difficult time for the whole team and a real fight for survival. But, those periods, really good stuff comes from that. And innovation and the need to be better because, you're literally fighting for survival. And we were lucky and we did survive and sort of catapulted out of the other side. And as we moved into going from winter to spring, if you will, we made the most of that period. And as we moved through a high-priced part of the cycle, well, we went to work in terms of investing back into the business. And that's been a big part of setting ourselves up for where we are now, which is that next part of the cycle, which my view is ultimately will pass us and spring will come again.
It's interesting that you have that perspective. People who are maybe newer to the sector or haven't got that mining background might not have that sense of perspective, might be feeling a little bit less optimistic. What would be your advice to them?
Well, I think as it relates to lithium, the long-term outlook is just incredible. We're a part of such an exciting industry, and the evidence of current and future growth is there in spades with the adoption of new technology, the shift to renewable power. There is just so much, and the growth rates looking in the rearview mirror are phenomenal. So we're building a very, very exciting future. Now, and look, I think everyone agrees on that. But of course the challenge is right now we stand in the depths of a low in the market, and trying to reconcile the two is difficult. But I think the other thing I'd add to give confidence to those people doubting is, the current phase of the cycle is just unsustainable. Pricing's just so low that it's difficult for the lowest cost producers to survive, let alone go on and invest. And actually investment's actually is what's required to meet that future demand. So this season will pass and spring will come and life will be good again.
Because you've been through this cycle already, I'm sure that lots of people listening would be, quite like to know what your secret was to staying afloat. You said you were very lucky. I'm sure it wasn't luck. I'm sure it was, a combination of talent, perspective, and severe trimming of overheads. What would be your advice? What was it, do you think, that with hindsight that helped keep you afloat?
Yeah, look, it's without question a lot of hard work and making tough decisions. And these parts of the cycle are very brutal, and it's about driving cost out of the business, improving efficiencies, and battening down the hatches. It's all of that, and it's tough. As I say, tough decisions, hard work, and keeping focused on that. And there's no escaping that. And this type of period does reset the market, and the fundamental truths become very apparent. And what I mean by that is that the highest quality assets, the lowest cost producers, those who have established the best supply chain relationships, so they've got confidence and customers who support them during these tough parts of the cycle, all of that becomes very, very clear in the bottom of the cycle. When prices are high and life is good, you don't see any of that because lots of people are making money and potentially the wrong assets get funded and et cetera, et cetera. You see a lot of that sort of plays out in the high cycle, but it all, as I say, comes out on the wash in the down cycle.
If we really sort of pull out and look at the mining sector as a whole, do you think for the most part that CEOs run quite a tight ship because you have this market volatility? Or do things get a little bit more sort of do people relax a bit during the good seasons? During the summer, do budgets get overinflated, or do you think I suppose a good CEO would always keep an eye on it?
That's right. I think mining or resource CEOs, as compared to other CEOs, I think there's the full spectrum of the
of course, of
the not so good to the very good. So I don't see that so much as a factor. But I think I think the key thing about navigating a business is really understanding the market you're in, understanding the competitive landscape, and being very thoughtful about setting the business up for success. And that's a balance of sort of feet on the ground, grassroots, balance sheet strength, making sure you're great at your core business and sort of mastering that. That's one part, but the other part's that investing and preparing for the future. And there's a tension there. There's a tension in terms of how you and the team invest your time, invest your capital, et cetera, and you have to do both. Yeah.
Let's cast our eye forward then, 5, 10 years even. Where do you think this market will be then?
5 to 10 years, I think demand continues to grow at a very healthy rates. The industry has to be much larger to support that. And I think what we'll start to see, and this is my guess for the future, as it relates to the lithium industry and more broadly the battery materials industry, I think there will be an emergence of key hubs globally, and those hubs will be responsible for battery production, recycling, and these key hubs will serve the world. Now today, I don't think those hubs are established, other than China, Korea, and to a much smaller extent, Japan. The world needs more. Now, the jury's not out, but I think over on a 5-year basis, that'll be built out, and by a 10-year basis, it will definitely be clear. And I think the other thing which will have played out will be probably a clearer picture of battery technologies. I think there's a rampant race on of battery chemistries competing, and the jury's not out there in terms of which battery chemistries win at which price points, but on a 5-year and a 10-year basis, I think that will have clarified as well. So a lot is unfolding rampantly, and by the way, I think that's part of the reason this sector is just so exciting to be part of.
Okay, so PLS, long been a leader in integrating new technology, including you do the ore sorting, and then there's all those downstream JV partnerships. What's been your approach to innovation?
Well, I see innovation as integral to continuous improvement and frankly, competition. Every business, and the way I think about business is you're in some sort of competition. That's what business is all about. Now, innovation is all about continuous improvement and getting better and better and trying to beat your competition. And I think this is the better way to think about innovation as a necessity, not as an option. And other businesses I've been involved with, they've treated R&D or innovation as sort of an add-on to the sideline. I think it needs to be central and integrated into the core DNA, because if it's done with that focus, well, the right things get chased and you then fund those, and it makes you stronger and better as a business. So as it relates to PLS, really a lot of the innovations, well, we call them innovations, this was all about cost out and getting better and better. So the ore sorting that we did is about that. The midstream processing that we're doing is completely novel technology, and again, innovation, but we think this has got a chance to be a differentiating factor and potentially change the game, not only for our business, but the industry. We've done online analyzers, there's been actually lots of things, but as I say, at the heart of it, it's this burning desire to get better and better at our core business.
You mentioned they're doing R&D. Obviously, that's potentially expensive. It takes up resources. How do you, in some ways, it's what we've been talking about already, but how do you sort of balance the short-term pressures of cycles and with your shareholder expectations and the need to have a long perspective, to be in it for the long game, ultimately?
Yeah, there's no easy answer to that. And it's a question myself and the executive and the board wrestle with every day, because really the key decision we get to make is how do we deploy our finite resources, being capital and our people. Like how do we direct our talent? And there's not a straightforward answer to that, and it's about thinking thoughtfully through ensuring that sort of feet on the ground core businesses is well supported, and whilst also investing prudently in those next steps for the future.
You've got to really sort of international perspective on all of this, not least because you're from New Zealand, but you work in Australia. You've also, as we heard at the beginning of the interview, you've worked around the world. To what extent has that sort of international perspective shaped your leadership style? Are you authoritarian? Are you collegiate? What are you? What feudal?
Yeah.
I don't know where I got feudal from, but it's fun.
Look, I think working abroad. Look, I've learned so much every place I've worked, but certainly working abroad taught me so much, and particularly the time I spent in the Middle East was very formative to me as a professional growing and a leader who's learning how to lead. But I went to the Middle East thinking that I was just going to learn lots about oil and gas. It was my first oil and gas job, and I did learn lots about that. But actually, what I learned from that experience was incredibly valuable. It was all about people. So this was a situation where we were working with lots of different cultures, lots of different ways of needing to understand and communicate with people, and through that experience, you learn a lot about yourself, and you learn a lot about how to get the best out of people, and an appreciation for the differences in people and culturally, but also actually that we're all the same. There's another side of it, we're actually all the same. So that's been some of the biggest, I guess, and most valuable takeaways I've had from my international experience. Because ultimately, as a manager or a leader, that's actually your key job. It's about how do I get the best out of people and supporting them. And if you can get that right, well, the rest just flows.
Talking about takeaways, this is my final question, and I'm asking everyone this question. What do you think your takeaway from this conference will be when you leave in the next couple of days?
There is a lot of excitement and trust in the long-term prospect of the industry. There's nobody here doubting that. So people are very bullish and excited on that. And that's weighed against this sense of concern and fear about this low point that everyone's struggling with. How long will it last? So those two aspects have come through sort of loud and clear to me here.
Thank you so much for joining us today on the Live Lounge sofas. It's been a great pleasure to get, your insights. It's been lovely to hear about your journey and sort of get that sense of your vision for lithium and, of course, leadership in this evolving industry. So thank you very much indeed. And thank you to everyone who is tuning in, either here with the headsets on or, of course, later on. Remember, you can listen or watch all of our Fastmarkets Live Lounge episodes. You can find them on the various podcast platforms, whether those are Spotify, Apple Podcasts, maybe Amazon. And of course, you can also watch us on YouTube. We've got our very own Fastmarkets channel. Plus, we're sharing all our highlights on our socials. You can find us on most of the major platforms. And we'd love it if you liked, commented, subscribed, all of the above, however you want to engage. We'd love to hear from you. But most of all, thanks very much indeed to our sponsors, Aquatech, and thank you very much to you for listening.